I used to believe my parents stayed together simply out of duty, an unspoken promise, a sense of responsibility, nothing more. To me, their marriage was a quiet arrangement, more habit than happiness. They shared the same house, but their hearts seemed miles apart. I never saw the kind of love that movies talk about, or even the small gestures that say, "I care." It was just routine. That all changed one rainy afternoon when I was cleaning out the attic. Among forgotten boxes and dusty photo albums, I stumbled upon something unexpected, a small leather-bound diary. It belonged to my mother. I hesitated at first. Was I invading her privacy? But curiosity pulled me in like a tide I couldn't resist. When I opened the fragile pages, I realized everything I thought I knew about my parents was incomplete, maybe even wrong. The words inside revealed a love I never imagined they had, a story filled with hope, pain, and secrets they never shared with me. That day, the world I knew shifted beneath my feet. What I found would change how I saw them forever. As I turned the delicate pages of the diary, the handwriting grew more vivid, like my mother's voice whispering through time. The first entry was dated June 12, 1995. It mentioned a name I recognized immediately, Liam, my father. But the way she wrote about him was nothing like the man I knew. She described the first time she really noticed him, not as a distant, quiet father figure, but as someone alive, full of simple, quiet charm. Today, I saw him fixing his old bike. Under the big oak tree in the park, she wrote. His sleeves were rolled up, and there was a smudge of grease on his cheek. He didn't see me watching, but I caught his smile when he finally looked up. It was shy, honest, nothing flashy, just genuine. I blinked, surprised. This wasn't the man I remembered growing up. The man I knew hardly smiled, let alone shyly, and grease-stained hands certainly weren't part of my childhood memories. Words painted a picture of someone who was quietly kind and real, not just a stoic provider. There was something about his eyes, soft, steady, like they held 1,000 stories he never told. For a moment, the world around us disappeared, and all I could see was him, she continued. Reading this, I felt a strange mix of wonder and disbelief. Who was this Liam from her diary? Where was this tender, imperfect man hiding when I was a child? That first glimpse into their past was like peeking through a hidden door, one that promised a story far richer and more complicated than I ever imagined. The diary pages felt alive as I read about those early days, when love was not shouted from rooftops, but whispered in quiet moments. My mother wrote about their very first conversation, a memory she held close like a fragile treasure. She described how Liam surprised her with a simple gift, a haiku. Not just any poem, but one he had written himself, awkward but sincere. He handed me a crumpled napkin, she wrote, and on it was a few short lines. If you were a star, I'd stay awake all night long just to watch your light. It made me laugh and then blush. I didn't know what to say. Poetry wasn't my thing. But somehow in that moment, his words felt like the warmest kind of honesty. From there, their connection grew quietly, but surely. My mother recounted afternoons spent together at the local library, their hands brushing as they exchanged books, sharing stories between pages and shy glances. They met often at a small coffee shop, where time seemed to slow. The steam from their cups mingled with soft laughter and deep conversation. Neither rushed, neither forced. It was as if the world had paused just for them. One rainy evening, she wrote about how Liam simply stood beside her, soaked through, waiting silently until the bus arrived. He didn't say much, but when he whispered, "Worth it," I understood everything. That night, love was in the silence, the shared stillness beneath the falling rain. I could almost see it, the way their affection grew in these quiet, imperfect moments. It wasn't fireworks or grand declarations. It was something deeper, something real. Their love started like a gentle river, flowing softly but steadily, carving its path through the ordinary days. And as I read, I realized this was a love not often seen, one built on small acts of kindness, honest words, and a patient understanding. It made me wonder, how many stories like this are hidden behind the quiet faces of the people we think we know best? As their quiet love blossomed, a storm was quietly brewing, one my mother never expected to face. Her family, bound by tradition and expectation, reacted with fierce disapproval the moment they learned about Liam. "He's too poor," they said bluntly. "He can't provide the life you deserve." Words like daggers, cutting through the fragile hope my mother held on to. They saw Liam as nothing more than a simple man with rough hands and modest means. A man who could never measure up to their standards. My mother wrote about the nights she cried alone in her room, torn between the love growing in her heart and the heavy weight of her family's judgment. "I felt trapped," she confessed. "How could I choose between the only love I've ever known and the duty I owe to those who raised me? It was like standing at a crossroad with no clear path." Despite the turmoil, Liam never wavered. He didn't argue or try to fight back. Instead, he stood quietly by her side, steady and unshaken. "He never complained," she wrote. "Even when my family's words stung the most, he remained patient, like a rock in a raging river. His silence spoke louder than any defense could. I could almost see him, the way my mother described, calm, enduring, a presence that didn't demand, but simply offered himself wholly. Their love became a silent rebellion, not loud, not boastful, but fierce in its determination to survive against all odds. Reading this, I felt my heart ache for them both. The pain of being caught between love and obligation, and the quiet strength it takes to hold on to hope when everything else seems to fall apart. Their story wasn't just about romance. It was about courage, resilience, and the delicate balance of choosing between what the heart wants and what the world expects. And in that tension, their true love began to show its colors. Not in grand gestures, but in silent promises and unwavering presence. The weight of disapproval from her family grew heavier each day, pressing down on my mother's heart like an unrelenting storm. But amid the darkness, a fierce spark ignited, a determination that neither distance nor judgment could extinguish. One evening, without a word to anyone, my parents made a choice that would forever change their lives. They decided to run away. Not out of rebellion, but out of a desperate need to protect the love that had quietly grown between them. The diary described their secret departure with a mixture of fear and hope. They packed only what they could carry. No fancy clothes, no elaborate plans. Just the essentials, and the belief that love alone could carry them through the unknown. Their wedding was nothing like a fairy tale. There were no flowers lining the aisle, no music filling the air. Instead, it was a small, humble ceremony, just two souls standing before a witness, pledging their hearts in the simplest, most profound way. "We didn't need grand gestures," my mother wrote. "Our vows were whispered promises in a quiet room, filled only with the steady beating of two hearts that refused to let go." Reading those words, I felt a surge of admiration. Here was a love that wasn't born from convenience or obligation. It was fierce, urgent, and real. It made me realize something I had never understood before. They didn't stay together because of duty or habit. They stayed because once they had loved each other with a passion so deep it moved them to defy everything else. That secret wedding was their rebellion and their sanctuary, a testament to a love that refused to be silenced by judgment or fear. As I closed the diary for the day, a new picture of my parents emerged in my mind, not just as the people who raised me, but as two young lovers who risked everything for a chance at forever. And I couldn't help but wonder, what came next? What challenges awaited them beyond that quiet, brave moment? The diary's pages turned slower now, revealing a new chapter, one marked not by grand declarations, but by quiet, steady devotion. My mother wrote about their first year of marriage, a time when the passionate words faded, but a deeper love quietly took root. She confessed how the sweet "I love yous" became rare, replaced by subtle acts that spoke louder than any phrase ever could. "He stopped saying the words I once longed to hear," she wrote, "but he never stopped showing me he cared. He made sure the firewood was stacked before winter, brewed my favorite tea when I was tired, and stayed up late to listen, even when I said nothing at all." My father's love was no longer loud or dramatic. It was steady, reliable, and humble. "Sometimes," she added, "I caught myself waiting for him to say it out loud. But then I realized, love doesn't always need words. It lives in the small moments, the silent support, the gentle touch, the everyday kindness that builds a life together." Reading this, I felt a new kind of admiration grow inside me. Their love was maturing, evolving from the fiery beginnings into a quiet, unshakable bond. It made me see my parents differently, not just as lovers, but as partners who found strength in the silence between words. Sometimes love isn't about shouting from the rooftops. It's about showing up day after day in ways that matter most, and in that realization, I began to understand the true depth of. As I flipped through more pages of the diary, something caught my eye. A torn page, ragged at the edges, with only one haunting line left intact. March 2nd, 1996. I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, and I don't know if I can ever look at him the same. Those words struck me like a sudden chill. What could she have seen? What secret had been hidden all these years? Something so powerful it was never spoken aloud. My heart raced as I imagined the weight behind that sentence. A crack in their seemingly steady love, a moment of doubt or betrayal that threatened to shatter everything. For the first time, I realized their story was more complicated than I had thought. Behind the quiet devotion and whispered promises lay shadows my mother had kept locked away. That single line opened a door to a chapter I wasn't yet ready to read, but I knew I had to. What happened on that day in 1996? How did it change their lives? The diary held the answers, waiting patiently for me to uncover them. As I closed the worn notebook, a mix of curiosity and unease settled in my chest. This was no ordinary love story. It was a journey marked by secrets, struggles, and a love tested in ways I never imagined. And now, I was about to dive deeper into the truth. Join me in the next episode, where we explore the moment that almost tore their marriage apart.